Do you have any regrets at all when you look back at your life? Is there anything that you would have wanted to have done differently anywhere?
I couldn't change if I wanted to.
People have asked me the same question for years. Dean, of all the people you met, who meant the most to you? Most expected me to give the obvious answer. Maybe the biggest movie star. Maybe the greatest singer. Maybe the man who stood beside me on stage the most. The truth isn't that simple. I've spent my life surrounded by legends. Some became lifelong friends. Some taught me lessons I'll never forget. A few changed the direction of my life without even realizing it. When you're young, you remember the applause. When you're older, you remember the people, the conversations after midnight, the phone calls that came when no one else called, and the quiet acts of kindness that never made the newspapers. I've been fortunate enough to know some extraordinary men, not because they were famous, but because of who they were when the cameras weren't rolling. Today, I want to talk about 5 of them. 5 men I admired, 5 men I trusted, and 5 men I loved in different ways. This isn't a story about Hollywood gossip. It's a story about friendship, loyalty, and gratitude. Because in the end, the greatest gift Hollywood ever gave me wasn't fame. It was the people I was lucky enough to meet. If you only knew me from the newspapers, you'd probably think Frank Sinatra belonged at number 1. He doesn't, but no list like this could ever begin without him. Frank and I were different from the very start. He loved taking control. I was happy letting life unfold on its own. Somehow those differences fit together perfectly. When people watched us with the Rat Pack, they saw confidence. They saw jokes, music, and packed showrooms in Las Vegas. What they didn't see was the friendship waiting backstage. Before every show, Frank would stop by my dressing room. Sometimes we'd talk about the audience. Sometimes we'd talk about our children. And sometimes we'd say almost nothing at all. Real friends don't always need conversation. They just need to know the other person is there. Frank was fiercely loyal. If you were part of his world, he'd stand beside you when it mattered. That's something I always admired about him. We didn't agree on everything. No lifelong friends ever do. But respect doesn't come from agreeing all the time. It comes from knowing someone has your back. After all these years, I don't remember every standing ovation we shared. I remember the laughter after the curtain closed. I remember the quiet moments no camera ever captured. To the world, Frank Sinatra was an icon. To me, he was simply a friend I was proud to call family long before people called us legends. Jerry Lewis and I were just 2 young guys hoping someone would give us a chance. Neither of us had a roadmap. We just had ambition. The first time we worked together, something unexpected happened. Jerry was unpredictable. He could turn the simplest moment into comedy. My instinct was never to compete with him. I stayed relaxed. I let him run. Somehow that balance became our signature. Almost overnight, theaters were full. People couldn't get enough of Martin and Lewis. We were making movies, filling nightclubs, and living a dream neither of us could have imagined. But success has a price. The bigger we became, the harder it was to stay the same 2 young men who had started the journey. People still ask me what really happened between us. The truth isn't exciting. We grew. We changed. Like many friendships, life pulled us in different directions. That doesn't erase what came before. Without Jerry, there is no version of my story that ends the way it did. He challenged me. He pushed me. He showed me that timing, trust, and chemistry can't be manufactured. They're either there or they aren't. Years after we went our separate ways, I found myself smiling whenever someone mentioned our old routines. Not because I missed the fame, but because I missed the excitement of those early days when 2 kids believed anything was possible. Jerry Lewis wasn't just my partner. He was one of the men who helped build the life I was lucky enough to live. There are friends you enjoy being around, and then there are friends who remind you what loyalty really means. Sammy Davis Jr. was one of those people. The public knew him as one of the most talented entertainers America had ever seen. Singer, dancer, comedian, actor, he could walk onto any stage and own it within seconds. What impressed me even more happened after the show. Sammy never forgot the people who helped him. No matter how successful he became, he treated stagehands, musicians, and waiters with the same respect he gave presidents. I noticed that, and I never forgot it. We spent countless nights together in Las Vegas. Sometimes we'd leave the stage exhausted, Instead of going home, we'd sit together for another hour laughing about something that had gone wrong during the show. Those conversations meant more to me than the performances themselves. Sammy had lived through things I could never fully understand. He faced prejudice that no one should have to endure. Yet he rarely let bitterness define him. Instead, he chose talent. He chose humor. He chose kindness. That took real strength. The Rat Pack wasn't just a group of famous entertainers. It was a family built on trust. Every family has disagreements and different personalities, but when one of us needed the others, we showed up. That's what I remember most. Not the headlines, not the sold-out theaters. Just three friends sitting together after another long night, grateful that life had brought us to the same place at the same time. Sammy Davis Jr. didn't just entertain millions. He reminded me that greatness begins with the way you treat people when no one is watching. The first time I really got to know John Wayne, I understood why so many people looked up to him. He walked into a room without trying to own it. He didn't have to. His presence did the talking. When we worked together on Rio Bravo, I wasn't just sharing the screen with one of Hollywood's biggest stars. I was watching a man who had earned every ounce of respect people gave him. Duke believed in preparation. He knew his lines. He respected the crew. Once the cameras rolled, he gave you everything he had. That kind of professionalism rubs off on everyone around you. What surprised me most was his generosity. If a younger actor was nervous, he'd put them at ease. If someone did good work, he'd say so. There was no need to remind everyone who the star was. They already knew. One afternoon between scenes, we sat together talking about family instead of movies. He looked at me and said, "At the end of the day, nobody remembers how many hours you worked. They remember whether you came home." That stayed with me. For all the characters he played, John Wayne understood what really mattered. Not fame, not headlines, the people waiting for you when the work was over. Years later, whenever someone asked me what made Duke different from everyone else, I never talked about his box office success. I talked about the man. Steady, dependable, honest. Hollywood produced a lot of stars, but men like John Wayne came along only once, and I'm grateful I had the chance to call one of them my friend. People are often surprised when I tell them who sits at the top of this list. They expect another Hollywood actor, another Rat Pack friend. Instead, it's Elvis Presley. The first thing people noticed about Elvis was the fame, the screaming crowds, the records, the television appearances. I noticed something else. I saw a young man carrying more pressure than anyone should have to carry. Everywhere he went, people wanted a piece of him. Very few simply wanted to know him. Whenever our paths crossed, Elvis was respectful. He didn't act like he had conquered the world. He asked questions. He listened. He gave people his full attention. For someone as famous as he was, that impressed me more than anything. I admired the way he changed American music. He didn't just sing songs. He made people feel them. He connected generations and proved that one voice could change an entire industry. When news came that Elvis was gone, it didn't feel real. He wasn't an old man. There was still so much music left inside him. It reminded me of something we all try to forget. Fame doesn't protect you. Money doesn't slow time. None of us know how much of tomorrow we're promised. As the years passed, I found myself thinking less about Elvis the superstar and more about Elvis the man. A gifted artist, a kind soul, someone who carried enormous expectations with remarkable grace. People still debate who the greatest entertainer ever was. I don't spend much time thinking about those arguments anymore. Greatness isn't measured only by ticket sales or gold records. It's measured by the lives you touch, by the memories you leave behind, by the way people smile when they hear your name decades later. That's why Elvis Presley is the final name on my list. Not because he was perfect, none of us were, but because he reminded me that talent may earn you applause. Character is what earns you a place in people's hearts forever. When people look back at my career, they'll probably remember the songs. Everybody Loves Somebody. That's Amor. Maybe they'll remember the movies or the nights in Las Vegas. I'm grateful for all of it. Every standing ovation, every packed showroom, every opportunity this incredible life gave me. But none of those things come to mind first anymore. I remember Frank Sinatra making me laugh when I needed it most. I remember Jerry Lewis believing two young dreamers could conquer the world. I remember Sammy Davis Jr. showing me that true greatness begins with kindness. I remember John Wayne proving that respect is earned long before the cameras start rolling. And I remember Elvis Presley reminding me that even the biggest stars are, at heart, just people searching for understanding. Those 5 men were different in almost every way. Different voices, different personalities, different journeys. Yet they all shared one quality. They never stopped being themselves. Hollywood changes. Fame comes and goes. New faces replace old ones. But genuine friendship, real admiration, and the memories you build with people who change your life never disappear. If there's one lesson I'd leave behind, it's this. Don't judge a life by how famous someone became. Judge it by the people who still speak their name with love after they're gone. I was fortunate enough to know 5 extraordinary men, even more fortunate to call them my friends. And if somewhere beyond this life there's one more stage waiting, I hope there's a piano, a few microphones, 5 empty chairs, and one more night to laugh together again. Thank you for listening to an old man. Remember the people who made his life richer than any audience ever could. And until next time, thank you for watching.